Alrighty, today we will dive into the world of Google Ads with Ilana Wechsler, a seasoned Google Ads specialist who runs her own agency and has developed a comprehensive Google Ads training program, teachtraffic.com. I stumbled across Ilana a few weeks ago, actually, on YouTube, and I was just doing some research for our internal documents and found her content really good. I thought it'd be worth reaching out and kind of get insights on how health clinics can effectively use Google Ads to achieve their marketing goals. So, Ilana, thanks for having a chat.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Nice to have a fellow Aussie. Normally it's Yanks.
Yeah, right. Cool. So I've got, as we discussed previous to this, a bunch of questions I kind of want to throw your way. And those questions are really the questions I get from my clients. So it'd be nice, I feel, for them to just hear those answers from a different perspective. So the first question is all around budgeting. And yeah, how do you feel like practitioners should kind of determine a budget for a Google Ads campaign?
Yeah, it's a question I also get asked quite a bit as well. And it's probably, the answer is it depends. I'm sorry to be so vague about it. How much you spend on ads will be a function of how much search volume there is around whatever is your area of expertise, be it chiropractor or, any kind of allied health. So search volume and how much you pay for a click. All right. So how much you pay for a click is really going to be a function of how competitive your industry is. Having said that, the amount you probably should spend, I'd say, is probably not as much as you would think, actually, given the local nature of your business, be it, you don't service all of America or all of Australia, you service certain suburbs that people are willing to travel to. And yeah, actually, funnily enough, I used to specialize in Google Ads for dentists for a number of years. So I know sort of the local health marketing pretty well. And to give you a ballpark for the dental space, just because I know it like the back of my hand, I reckon like $3 or $4 grand a month would be more than sufficient, but that's because dental keywords are quite expensive, and you're probably looking in competitive markets around $10 CPCs. So, it doesn't take much. So it's only really 300 clicks, right?
Yeah.
So that's why it depends on your industry and depends on the volume to determine then how much you spend on ads. But yeah, I'd say for most industries, it wouldn't be more than $5 grand a month. I mean, you're lucky you're not in plumbing, because that's in America, it's $100 a click, let alone a lead. So yeah, it's sort of impossible to answer.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. I kind of work backwards, and we kind of figure out what the cost per lead or acquisition, so how much you're prepared to pay for a booking. Most clinics kind of answer around the $50, $60 mark. And then, out of that, how many clicks, what's the percentage or conversion rates, and go from there. But yeah, I think it's worth, you just sort of find that starting point and kind of go for it, right?
Exactly. And it's a very fluid thing as well. So you might say, okay, this first month, I want to really just dip my toe in the water. I don't want to throw a huge chunk of change in it. It's a test. And, and so you could just put in, even $1,000 for the first month, see what results you get. And then if it's a no-brainer, you're getting leads at $30. It's like, okay, so there's a business case to increase our budgets and, grow our campaigns from there. So it's very fluid. Like, you're not committed to anything. Like, you could change your budgets from one day to the next. It's like, that's the beauty with this stuff. It's not like an ad in a local paper where you're dropping a set amount and that's it. You can't change it from, one day to the next. This is, you can change it whenever you want.
Yeah, that is a great point. Campaign types, right? So I think if we think about Google Ads, we're typically thinking about, running the search ads. Would you recommend doing sort of display ads? There are now smart campaigns, and have you sort of dabbled in Performance Max at all?
All right. I have a lot of thoughts on Performance Max.
Everyone does.
Controversially, I'm not a fan, actually.
Yeah.
You've probably, if your listeners have a Google ad account live, they've most likely received a call from a Google rep, account strategist, they call themselves. They are actually sales people. People should know that. So take what they say with a grain of salt, just like when you would be talking to any salesperson. And they are pushing Performance Max hard, very, very hard. It is no doubt where Google is going. That is the direction they are heading with these. For your listeners who aren't aware of what Performance Max is, essentially it's a fully automated campaign, which what Google want is they want you to give them a budget and your website, and they go away and find your customers, right? And in doing so, they spray your ads across the entire Google ecosystem. Now, for a local business, like be it, a chiropractor or, sorry, let me just mute this. It's, I was going to pause this. It's not really viable, like at the end of the day, they're just trying to get in front of people who are in the moment of Google searching chiropractor near me, chiropractor suburb. They don't need their ads on YouTube and all. And if you do want to do that, it's a whole other kind of marketing strategy,
Yeah.
The only time I use Performance Max, if at all, and even then it's not even always, I test it and most of the time it fails, is for e-commerce, but definitely not for lead generation. So any of your listeners, I would urge them not to do it. There's going to be a huge amount of wasted ad spend, which you can't control. You won't be able to identify because it's all very opaque, what Google reveal, which is the whole point of it. So don't fall for the advice that Google gives you in testing Performance Max and give you these sort of false metrics. Oh, you're going to increase your reach and all this kind of stuff. It's just really code for you just spending a whole lot for actually very, very little.
Yeah.
So my recommendation, to answer your question,
is
to do a really, really basic and strategic Google search campaign, not a smart campaign, with very tight location targeting, utilizing the right match types of keywords, enabling all the ad assets, one of them being the location, connecting it to what's called
Google My Business.
The Google My Business. It's called something different now.
Google My Places. Yeah,
something like that. They're always changing it. It's impossible to keep up with it. So that you can have your ad in the Google Maps. It's very nicely blended in as the sponsored ones versus the organic ones. And I find that just consistently works month on month. And I still have agency clients that, month on month, it just yields results for them.
Yeah. I'd also add to include phone number as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Call extensions.
Call extension. Exactly. Yeah. I completely agree with that. You mentioned when you were talking about keywords, about the different types of so I think we're referencing kind of phrase match, exact match, and broad match. Do you want to kind of briefly, I know it's a deep topic, but do you want to kind of touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Most people don't realize that there is a difference between the keyword that you're bidding on versus what your ad actually showed for based on what somebody typed in. So if we use the example of a chiropractor, okay, somebody types in, I'm in Sydney, so we'll just say Bondi, chiropractor Bondi. If you don't include a match type, then your ad can kind of show for variations of that keyword. So areas that you might not want to show your ad for, right? The thing is, what Google recognize, and what I would agree with them on, is that, people type in really weird things to Google. So it's actually kind of impossible to think of every possible variation of what somebody types in, right? So these match types allow the possibility of variations of what people type in whilst also being in line with what you want. All right. So the most narrow match type that you can have is what's called exact match, where you put square brackets around the keyword. And so for the keyword chiropractor Bondi, if you put square brackets around that keyword, that's your way of telling Google, hey, Google, I want to only show my ad for when somebody types in chiropractor Bondi. If somebody types in chiropractor in Bondi, your ad will probably show. But if somebody types in chiropractor Sydney, your ad won't show, because chiropractor and Bondi need to be together. Okay. The next layer out is what's called phrase match, which means I need chiropractor and Bondi to be somewhere in what somebody types in, but it can be anywhere and it can be in any particular order. All right. So if somebody types in, where is the best chiropractor in Bondi? Your ad wouldn't show if it was an exact match, but it would if it was phrased, because chiropractor and Bondi are somewhere in that search term. That's my preferred match type, because at least I'm giving Google guidance of, hey, I want chiropractor and Bondi, but I'm allowing for the concept and the possibility that someone's not going to type in exactly that. So I'll get more impressions and I'll get more clicks by using that match type while still being relevant for what I'm trying to appear for. And as I said, the broad match, which is no syntax around the keyword at all, which is pretty sneaky by Google, because if you don't know about match types, you would just type it in. But that's code for, hey, Google, go for your life. Here's kind of what I want, but I'm open to.
Here's the album, Go for Your Life.
I'm kind of open to having my ad to show for chiropractor Melbourne and chiropractor Adelaide and Perth and Darwin, right? Which you absolutely don't want your ad to show for that. So match types are really, really important. So my suggestion to people is, when they're creating their search campaigns, to use phrase match only. You could use exact, but it's probably going to have really limited volume. So phrase, and then at least you're allowing for that variation, as I said, whilst also being exactly who you want.
Yeah. It's interesting with the phrase match. I've actually found that Google are getting a bit more sneaky and throwing in
exact-ish now.
Yeah, exact-ish, right? Yeah, like back exercises, chiropractor or something like that. So yeah, we kind of use both phrase and exact. I kind of think of like phrase match is you're sort of going fishing and you're kind of, paying Google for data. But then what we tend to do is, and I'm sure you'll teach this as well, but just create like negative keyword lists and add negative keywords to those phrases that we know aren't going to really yield a result, like exercises or
jobs, salary, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, totally. And then all the kind of keywords that have like buying intent, I tend to just add them in as exact, and then over time just kind of pause the phrase and kind of be done with it.
Interesting.
So,
I personally don't do that. I find I pay more for a cost per click for exact than I do for phrase. And I'm going to be showing for those terms anyway. So that's kind of, I don't know, maybe that's something to think about. But yeah, absolutely adding negative keywords is critical, because Google over the years have definitely been loosening their constraints around the match type. And there are some things that slip through the cracks that you think, really, Google, that's not a close, it's what they call close variance. It's like, I don't think that's a close variant, but so it's a constant game of playing what I call like whack-a-mole with Google.
Like they even, I've noticed, sneak in like competitor names and stuff like that,
which some people want to appear for. And actually I've had a lot of experience in that health space in terms of, do you want to show for competitors, particularly in the dental area, as I said. I don't know, my thoughts on it are I've had some dental clients, and like, I don't know if you know much about dental marketing in Australia. It's war. Like it is, it's like super competitive. Anyway, so some dental clients will be like, I want to show my ads for these competitors. Like, he's just opened up down the road. Like, it's it's not fair, blah, blah, blah. And so they were like super aggressive about it. But what I found over, a number of time and across many, many different accounts, even beyond dental, is whilst it might look like in the ad account it's working in that it's generating leads, in that they've picked up the phone and call and we're tracking that, when you actually have a discussion with the client saying, how the quality of the leads going, etc., they say, you know what, like, we're getting calls for the competitive practice, but they're looking just to change their appointment or something. So it actually leads to frustration for the end user who thinks they're calling that dental practice to change their appointment. They're getting a competitor who's trying to sell them over the phone. They're like, no, like, I've got to, so actually I just said, look, let's just not do it.
Yeah.
There are other strategies to try and poach new patients, but bidding on your competitor brand names, it just doesn't really work. And Google you're allowed to do it. Google don't like you doing it. And so therefore they whack you with a pretty bad quality score, which is the metric by which Google rewards you for how good a keyword is, and it affects how much you pay for a click. So if you have a bad quality score, so it's a number between 1 and 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the best. If you have a quality score of about 1, you'll pay the highest cost per click. So, you're getting whacked with high CPCs for it and they're not converting. So yeah, I'm not a massive fan.
Yeah, great. What about clinics bidding on their own brand name?
Look, you won't pay much for a click. Once again, back to quality score, you'll have most likely a quality score of 10 for your own brand, and you'll pay cents for it. So I personally think it's worth having there that they're not having there, so that you don't have other people bidding on it, because most people do. And you really won't pay much. I mean, it would be like $20 a month or something. And then also you can send them to where you want to send them. I don't know. But you ask 10 different PPC managers, you'll probably get 10 different answers. I am a fan of bidding on brand, but I think it's not everyone agrees with me. But
yeah, I agree. Especially if like a brand name contains like a search term, like if your brand includes like physio or chiro or whatever.
Exactly.
Phrase match. Yeah, like we'll just.
That's right.
Yeah. Cool. Next thing I kind of want to touch on, which we could probably spend a couple of hours talking about, but we won't, is ad copy. Do you have any kind of tips or best practices for sort of creating engaging copy?
Yeah, I do. I think, you don't want to fall in the trap of just having a really bland ad that's really similar to your competitors. So I would encourage people first to do a Google search for their target phrase, be it chiropractor, suburb, or whatever, whatever it is their business is, and see what ads your competitors are writing. You don't have to click on the ads, but you'll be able to see the ads. I am, especially for sort of that kind of local type business, a fan of including the type of business in the suburb in the headline. People kind of want to know where they're going, and I find that whilst it may decrease the click-through rate, it will improve your conversion rate, because people kind of know before they go in. So you kind of don't want to fall in the trap of just getting as many clicks as possible, because you spend that money, you pay per click. You want to kind of use your ad to filter in the right people, but also filter out the wrong people. And so really, like, as much as you can be kind of upfront with people as to where you're located, and I don't know, maybe if you're more expensive, I would almost be upfront with your fees to some degree. Say, prices from, just so there's no surprise. Because if they're searching for, cheap chiropractor Bondi, which your ad would show for, then you're not going to be great for them, because you're going to pay for that click and they're going to go, oh, sorry, I'm not going to pay that price. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Obviously. And then there's this balance sort of between, but yeah, as I said, I like to think about ads as filtering the right people, but equally important, filtering out the wrong people, so that you don't pay for these. It's expensive traffic at the end of the day, so you want to be really clever about it. If you bid on other suburbs, which is actually I have a whole course inside my online community on Google Ads for local businesses, and I kind of outline the whole strategy around how to structure your campaigns. And one of the campaigns is to bid on certain suburbs, right? So you would bid on obviously the suburb that your practice is in, but also the surrounding suburbs.
Yeah.
And when I did that, I was like, okay, great. We're going to put in the ad copy the suburb that I'm bidding on. So, whatever is the neighboring suburb to Bondi, I would put that in, so let's just call it, I don't know, Waverley, right? So then people click on it thinking that they're going to a chiropractor in Waverley and get there and go, oh, no, they're not, they're Bondi. So actually, I changed my method because it got a really good click-through rate, but it didn't get a good conversion rate. And actually, even though I'll bid on that keyword, chiropractor Waverley, I'll have in the ad copy Bondi, so that they know up front that they're actually in Bondi, and that only the people who are prepared to travel there will actually click on it or contact me. And I found that my conversion rates really improved dramatically for it, which is the metric that you need to live and breathe by.
Yeah.
Managing ads.
Yeah, totally. How often do you sort of suggest people to go and update their ad copy?
I mean, we don't do it probably as often as one would think. Once you kind of have a good ad copy that's working, I mean, there's only so many ways to say it. And for a local business, I mean, it's not like you're, I don't know, like there's certain things that people are looking for. They maybe want to know, like, do you have parking available? If it's like a dental practice where, you might spend 10K on getting implants, they want to know if there's like a payment plan available, so you got to really think about like, what are the pain points for people, and incorporating that. So for example, you might want to say, over 20 years experience as a chiropractor, hopefully, thousands of really happy patients, health fund, we accept health fund. There's only kind of so many ways you can kind of really say it,
Yeah, no waiting times.
Yeah, or like after hours appointments, we're open Saturdays. I mean, all these ones that I've used in the dental space.
Yeah. Cool. So let's say we've got our campaign going, and it's been 2 or 3 months, and we've seen a couple, some results come along. What are kind of some common optimization techniques that people can use to improve their campaign performance?
That's probably a discussion in itself.
Yeah. Do you have a story you could share, or like?
Look, I mean, the optimization process, I would say to people, it's like what you start doing and what you end up doing, it as often will be quite different. The daily kind of activity would be what we touched on, of adding negative keywords, because it's inconceivable to think of, what people type in every day. And Google have openly said, which I think is actually a crazy statistic when you think about it, that 20% of all Google searches every day, which you can imagine is in the billions, right, have never been searched for before.
Yeah.
Which is nuts,
Yeah.
So new things are coming up all the time. So so you really need to, it's, Google Ads is not set and forget, but, hopefully you get your ad account to a point where it's low touch. It's in sort of what's called maintenance mode, So yeah, adding negative keywords to obviously reduce wasted ad spend, and that improves your click-through rate and hopefully conversion rate. After a couple of months, if a keyword is generating you clicks but no leads, you really want to look at like the quality of that traffic, like what are they actually typing in, and maybe they're sort of too far up the funnel. Like maybe somebody types in, what is a chiropractor? Like they're browsing, they're not quite ready to hire someone, or chiropractic practices or theory or something. So you're really trying to transport yourself into the mind of somebody who knows they want a chiropractor. They're just trying to find one that's going to help them, not if they need a chiropractor, So having a look at the conversion rates of your keywords is definitely important. You also want to look at the time of the day that your leads are happening. So what I find sometimes this is probably more in really expensive CPC industries, is that a lot of advertisers like run out of budget by like 3 o'clock, by the time 3 p.m. hits, right? Especially if, you've got campaigns that are limited by budget. So sometimes we will run like an after hours strategy where we've got a separate campaign that got its own budget that kicks off at 3 o'clock when there's way less competition. People have dropped off, they've spent their money for the day, and we can kind of come in at the end of the day and kind of clean up those leads. Clean up. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done this in the legal space and it's like worked ridiculously well because it's, $40, $50 CPCs, so it doesn't take much for people to hit their budgets for the day.
Yeah.
You could also create, which we do, is like a mobile only campaign targeting very mobile type keywords, and make sure, because I don't know if you've done a Google search yourself, but if you were to type in, coming back to this same keyword, I keep using chiropractor Bondi. If you set up your campaign the right way, such that it, as we touched on, you have those ad assets attached to your ad, be it location extensions, call extensions, and there's a whole bunch of other ones like site links and call outs, etc. You can actually dominate the entire screen on someone's phone by having that one ad. And I mean, do a Google search yourself, type in whatever is a local business and have a look.
Yeah.
And you'll see that one ad done properly is the entire screen. So you only really want to do that and bid top dollar for a mobile. Doesn't really matter for a desktop because the others you can still see them. And so having like a mobile only campaign like that, so that we have got that entire screen.
Just quickly, so one sec on that point. I was actually reviewing all of our clients' analytics account and found that it was close to 70% of bookings made online done through the mobile. So it's huge.
It's huge. And that is not uncommon. That's more and more I see that with local type businesses. It's pretty much a mobile campaign. Given that, and on that topic, I would then really make sure that your page load speed is fast. People won't have the tolerance to wait for things to load and they'll just leave. So you really want to make sure that it's super fast, and it's obviously a responsive site. You've got I would say a sticky header, so the phone number is always present there, ready for them to click if they want. And I'm not shocked by that. Other ways you can optimize your campaigns is to have a look at like the hour of the day that your lead's coming in, making sure that, as you said, that's an after hours strategy, even days of the week. Like I find, like local businesses are so focused on generating phone calls. But yet there's a huge portion of people who work during the day and, like just don't have the time to book an appointment. So, making sure you have a form that they can fill in online, and making sure your ads are showing, I'd say up until about like 11 o'clock at night. It's worth testing, right? And that's what you can look at to see, do you get leads at those hours of the day? Because they'll be way, way cheaper, because people, so many local advertisers only run their ads from 9 to 5 because that's when they can answer the phone. It's like, well, yes, that's what some people do. And that's what I've really learned actually in all my years of experience, is that like, some people go through life being able to call between 9 and 5 and book appointments over the phone. But there's a whole other portion of people who don't. Maybe they're, working in construction and they're on site all day and they don't, and so don't fall in the trap of like forgetting about those people who work, or just do things at odd hours,
Parents with young children,
Totally. Parents with young children. I mean, I've got 3 kids, so I can certainly attest to that. Like, you're constantly interrupted during the day. And it's when the kids gone to bed at night, like, finally I've got 5 seconds to actually finish a thought.
Totally. And then and I think even during like this like post-COVID era, right, we're more used to like doing those bookings online and, got the confidence that it basically works. Whereas prior. Yeah.
Look, my local GP, like I can book an appointment online. I don't need to call up, you know, it's fantastic. So I go, oh, at night, okay, great, let's log on, you know, my kid's sick or whatever, and I just book an appointment. So having a way that they can book an appointment is so seamless for people. Like, why wouldn't you do that, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree. So I think we can almost kind of wrap it up here. I think that we've given like quite a lot of insight and
Okay, cool.
that people can kind of test. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to lastly like hand over to you to, you know, talk through your program and what like people could expect from like running through your program.
Yeah, sure.
The reason is that we get a few clients that come our way that just aren't ready, like you said, to spend those big budgets, and and a lot of people in the allied health industry, they just like to get their hands dirty and learn themselves, and then I find that, you know, those clients that have, you know, done the hard yards come across to us and as an agency, and then, you know, kind of get the results from there. But yeah, if you wanted to talk about your program a bit.
Yeah, sure. So I have a bunch of training courses. They're all in the one place under the one kind of area. So you just pay the flat monthly fee to get access to all my courses, and that's at teachtraffic.com. And I specifically, I guess, for the people who would be listening to this, I have a specific course on what's called Google Ads for local business, which honestly, I just give away the entire farm of what I did in the dental space. I use obviously the dental example, but you would just swap wherever the word is dentist for whatever is service that you offer, be it chiropractor or I don't know,
physio, osteo,
you name it. Exactly. Right. It's because at the end of the day, like for a lot of businesses, like they probably don't need an agency managing this. You just kind of need to know how to set it up right. Make sure you got your tracking right so that you'll know with clarity, are your ads generating leads or not? And if so, how much is it costing you? And I've trained heaps of in-house staff how to do this themselves. Inside teachtraffic.com is also an online forum, so you can ask me personally questions. And if you're unsure if you've done it right, I offer free account reviews for people. So you don't share your login with me. We just hook up manager accounts. I do a screen record video auditing your account. And then I can kind of say, yeah, you've done this right. You've kind of not done this right. Here's how I would fix it. So you get specific feedback on your campaign. So rather than just a course, like I always found when I was learning, like I could understand the theory, but then when it came to implementing it myself, I just like had a roadblock, you know. So I give people feedback on it. And we also have like live Q&A sessions where we kind of talk through what's going on in the industry. As I explained to you, Michael, I still have my agency, although I really don't do much agency work, but I know enough of what's working right now to kind of tell people. And so you can definitely check out teachtraffic.com. It's all in the one place. It's not like you buy access to specific courses. It's all my content's there of Google Ads, Google Analytics, Facebook ads, now SEO. I've got a course on SEO and got heaps more coming as well.
Awesome. Yeah, I love it. Thanks so much for your time. And
no worries. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks.